Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 23rd day of May in the year of our Lord 2025. This is Memorial Day weekend, which is a time we are supposed to pause and remember those who fell in battle throughout the 250 years of America's existence. Just a 3-day weekend for most people, but for some, a sad time. A reminder of lives that could have been, that might have been. The purpose of this report today is not to discuss Memorial Day, but to discuss how thoroughly, completely, totally we have been lied to, how Joe Biden's diagnosis of metastasized cancer is evidence of those lies. The lies I just mentioned are of such profound importance because they go to the very heart of this constitutional republic, or what the Democrat politicians often refer to as, quote, our democracy. The lies were not just the usual wink of a politician's eye as if to say, you know what I mean, right? No, these lies were not subtle. They were designed to systematically and ruthlessly mislead us, the American people, as to the condition of Joe Biden, and to deceive us in order to place an unelected cohort or cabal in the office of President of the United States. Every institution, every person that vouched for him and told us that he was as sharp as a tack, that he ran rings around everybody, they should lose all credibility, should never be believed or trusted again when he was a non-campaigning candidate in 2020, apparently just sitting at home while others did the work for him and spoke for him. Most of us knew something was wrong. He was elected anyway, or was he? Now, with this open deception, I suppose it's okay if I say publicly, no, that election was not fair. It was stolen. How do I know that? Well, I don't. But these people apparently lie about even the fact that their candidate is not the real candidate. But who knows? I just know now, without a doubt, that the entire 4 years of his presidency was a complete lie and a fraud against the American people and against their guarantee of the ability to freely select their leaders. We could see the confusion in his eyes, his inability to complete a sentence, his stumbling walk, his falling asleep at critical moments, his shaking hands with ghosts. To point these things out was just pandering to extremists or cruelty, or worst of all, disinformation. We all saw it, though, but they covered it up. The White House staff insisted he was sharp as a tack behind closed doors. Jake Tapper, who now spends his time selling his book, refuting everything he once said, was different when the machine he once worked for had power. Back in those days, he told us that he knew the man and never saw any evidence of decline. The sycophant media told us he was more engaged than ever. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre blamed a cold or a childhood stutter for the fact that he couldn't make a 10-minute speech and remain coherent. This was warfare conducted psychologically against the American people and against common sense. The old quip, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes, became reality instead of just a clever line. Leaked memos and emails from the White House admit the issues he suffered from and the treatment, including stimulants used to keep him going. Whoever was exercising power in his place wanted desperately to keep it. He became, in effect, a Potemkin president, a kind of movie set, which is designed to confuse and hide the reality that that great naval battle you just saw was fought in a small swimming pool. Every decision made during his entire presidency is now in question. When I say in question, I really mean discredited and invalid. The $93 million green energy spending scam, the 1,500 last-minute pardons, the open borders admitting known criminals from prisons of the world, especially the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan resulting in the deaths of 13 Marines. Those things should be investigated, but thinking about it now, what really should happen is that everything signed by Otto Penn while he was in office should be declared invalid by the Supreme Court. The situation is like a thriller movie. The Manchurian Candidate comes to mind, except there's no Manchurian. There's only a very dark cabal hidden from public view running the country, funding wars, fundamentally changing America, as they would put it. The American people had nothing to do with any of this, except they believed the fantasy about kindly old Joe Biden looking out for little people. In reality, the cabal remained busy trying to install policies that would outlast his term, including the funding of the Ukraine war. Let's just talk about media complicity for a moment. The media didn't just get it wrong, folks. No, they intentionally suppressed and deceived us. The New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, and many others all had medical experts to defend Biden's vigor and to accuse any questioners of being right-wing extremists, conspiracy theories, etc., so on and so forth. I'm reminded of the retort to the accusation of being a conspiracy theorist. That is, I will quit believing in conspiracies if you quit conspiring. Regarding the current admitted diagnosis of metastatic prostate cancer and bone cancer, we are told he hasn't had a PSA exam since 2014, so he had no symptoms. It didn't know that he had terminal cancer. That's just a stupid lie that insults the intelligence of even the dumbest American doctors. Tell us, and I mean all doctors, that his cancer was a slow mover, so he had it for at least 10 years. Knowing that, he knew in 2020, Dr. Jill knew in 2020, and whoever was running this country knew in 2020, aside from the implications of the country having a completely non-functional figurehead president. What about the cruelty of a wife who loved power, money, and pleasure so much she would do that to her husband? What did Dr. Jill, his medical staff, who continued to report that he had good health, when did they know that he had cancer, and why didn't they disclose that to the American people? We are told now, I suppose we are expected to believe, that the president, even when he was vice president, with access to the best medical team, the best medical care in this world, did not know that he had cancer. I refuse to believe that, which is unbelievable. Did he receive any aggressive treatment for such aggressive cancer, such as surgery, chemo, radiation, perhaps all three? If he did receive those treatments, none of it was ever disclosed. And if he did not, well, I guess that means Dr. Jill just waited until it became terminal. Was this what it appears to have been, a cold, calculated, very cynical decision to let this demented man who didn't know the difference go without treatment so the cabal would run things for a few more years? Why now? Why release this report now since the election is over? Perhaps the announcement was just intended to distract us from all the years of deception, keep us from looking behind the curtain. Maybe the auto pen scandal was getting too close for comfort, so now the cabal can say, look, folks, old Joe has cancer, so cut him a break and just let it go. Even Donald Trump is speaking out on the subject. Quote from the president. Quote, Joe Biden was not up for open borders. He never talked about open borders, where criminals of all kinds, shapes, and sizes can flow into our country at will. It wasn't his idea to open the border and almost destroy our country and cost us hundreds of billions of dollars to get criminals out of the country and go through the process we're going through now. It was the people who knew he was cognitively impaired, and that took over the auto pen. They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level. They did it to destroy our country, end quote. So now, folks, we are expected to just forget and forgive because old Joe has cancer. Well, no, we can't, and we won't do that for many reasons. The first is that the guilty need to be exposed and punished, but will that ever happen? I don't know, but it seems doubtful given what has transpired so far. Another reason is that the presidency isn't just a ceremonial title or something that any demented, incompetent, sick person can hold while other more competent and far more sinister people execute the duties of the office as they wish. The American presidency is the most powerful executive role on the planet. Given the current power of America's military, I would say it's the most powerful position in world history. It requires mental clarity, physical stamina, and above all, moral responsibility. None of these traits were present in Joe Biden, and yet the cabal pushed him into the race, apparently denied him cancer treatment so they could use him to steal power. I have to point out that his wife was involved in all these subterfuges and was above all most guilty of the abuse of her husband. They lied to us. The cabal lied to us. Dr. Jill, most importantly, the media, which is supposed to be a watchdog, lied to us. Can the media in this nation ever regain any degree of trust? more importantly, should it be able to regain trust? I just don't see that happening. Not in my lifetime, because the American people, a large percentage of them anyway, are angry and demanding answers. Our media watchdogs overpowered, deceived us about who held power for at least 4 years. The last reason for continuing the investigation, arresting those to whom the evidence points, and seeing the guilty punished is that if we fail in that regard, they will do it again because they are just that wicked. In conclusion, folks, one other thought occurs to me about our former president. Perhaps he had slow-moving prostate cancer, as do many men his age, but then he was subjected to many mRNA vaccines and boosters, and the slow-moving cancer morphed into an aggressive turbo cancer that doctors tell us is common among the vaccinated. Maybe that happened. Finally, folks, this information is hard, especially because it reminds us that at least for several years we have not had democracy in this country, but we have had its opposite. Despite all that, enjoy a 3-day weekend. Don't forget to remember. At least that's the way I see it, folks. Until next time, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.